Carl here. The following podcast was recorded at noon on Monday, April 14th, 2025. All information presented was true and valid up to the time of recording. Let's get started. Welcome to Crayon Box Politics Weekly, your go-to podcast for breaking down the latest in state and federal legislation. I'm Carl, a retired Marine and political enthusiast, here to help you stay informed and engaged.
And I'm Avery, and as always, we're here to unpack policies and decisions shaping our lives one bill at a time.
So grab your favorite color from the crayon box, and let's draw some clarity from the chaos.
Last week, we promised you that we would talk about freedom of speech and its status as a core right enshrined in the Constitution, and we're going to deliver on that promise.
Promises made, promises kept, right?
I mean, unlike another group I know.
Try two. Two groups that we know.
All right, that's fair. Okay, so, if only that, let's just go. Just move on.
Yeah, so since we don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
No, we're not. Fuck that. Let's just go on. That is asking for trouble, and I am not here for it today. I'm going to become a fucking problem.
Since his return to power, Trump and his fellow maggots have busted their asses to turn Trump 2.0 into a great big Uno reverse card when it comes to free speech, right? I mean, if you remember during the Obama years and during the Biden years, even during Trump 1.0 a little bit, there was a lot of consternation about how people couldn't go out and say derogatory things and not have to face the consequences for those things. And they called it censorship, right?
Mm-hmm. Because
now what's going on is that
a human being.
Right. So what's going on now is that the maggots are saying that the days of censorship are over and they can say the things that they want to say. I mean, they're trying to normalize the word retard and the use of the word retard.
Mm-hmm.
They're bringing back the term transvestite. I've seen it used so many times.
God. Oh, and the word that rhymes with maggot. That's there too.
Oh yeah, yep, that one too.
I'm just about to the point where I'm just like, you know what? See you next Tuesday.
It's absolutely retarded the way that things are going, right?
Oh, look, you used that word.
Shit.
Look at you.
Let's go back.
You're fucking around and finding out, man.
Fuck. It's God, absolutely dumb.
You're gonna get us canceled. We're not even starting. Fuck me.
I will edit that part out.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
I wish there was a way to mark this video so that I knew where to go.
Oh Jesus. Here we are. Oh, today.
So it's absolutely dumb. Oh God. It's absolutely dumb that we live in a society where the ability to tell someone that they are a derogatory word or make accusatory statements that are unfounded and believe that you can get away with it and not have to deal with consequences is absurd. The fact that now we are saying that somehow asking people to respect people is somehow this effort to ban free speech, or it's an infringement upon free speech. It's almost like the maggots on the right don't quite understand what freedom of speech is, in the same way that the idiots on the left don't understand what free speech is,
And they
right?
get
Like,
upset when you like turn it against them on either side. Like it
mhm.
just oh, it drives me crazy. They all drive me crazy. I've seen some
it's
shit.
it's just it's this absolute failure to um what's the word I'm looking for? It's a failure to come to the middle, right? It's a failure to understand that there is a nuance to everything, and we
Just be
constantly
respectful.
subscribe to this. Yeah, but we also constantly subscribe to this um, oversimplification process when we're dealing with problems,
Fair.
right? Like we break it down to the lowest common denominator, and that's the issue, rather than all of the other things that are associated with it, right? Like,
I mean, but
so at the end of the day,
if you don't break it down Barney
go ahead.
style for some people, like sometimes they ain't even gonna get it, and then just even when you break it down Barney style, they still don't get it. It's sad.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Even if you do break it down, they don't get it.
Yeah.
You could paint the clearest picture of what is going on, and they still wouldn't believe you because fake news, right? Like,
Connect the dots. No. Okay.
and
Paint
I
by
mean,
number.
hell, there was the Trump administration claimed something was fake news, and it turned out to be real news.
Oh God.
We'll get to that point in a second. Um, So, but what I really wanted to do is kind of reach back to our roots a little bit. Talk to the bills that we've got that have come out, the executive actions that have come out, and the state bills that have come out. Kind of break it down that way, and then we'll talk as we're going through this. So, I guess the first bill that we want to talk about is HR 2634. Now, folks, for everyone at home listening, first and foremost, I'm going to put it up on the screen for everyone to see on the video, but for everyone at home listening, HR 2634 is titled the Free Speech on Campus Act. We're going to try to steer away from talking about the right to protest this episode and focus on the overarching freedom of speech under the First Amendment, but it's going to go a little bit in depth as we progress. But I digress. HR 2634, Free Speech on Campus Act, right? This is a bill that essentially requires schools to provide written statements and educational programming to new students on the rights of those students under the First Amendment of the Constitution. Now, this was a Democrat-introduced bill. Not going to go anywhere, unfortunately. But this is an effort to preserve and protect the freedom of speech and make sure that these kids who go out there and start protesting know what their rights are. So that's just my thoughts on this bill, Avery.
Yeah. No. The fact that we even have to come up with bills like this is dumb, especially because even when you see the right side, they're like, oh, freedom of speech is back. It never left. It never left, and just because someone told you not to be an asshole, doesn't mean that your rights were taken away. So I mean, this is good, especially because they're told so many things that you can't do at this point in time, or you're gonna get deported at this point. So we'll move on to that the next episode or the episode after.
Yeah, I mean, and the long story short here is that we have developed this understanding, or the lack of understanding. We develop an understanding of the lack of understanding of what our rights are, right? Americans don't know what their rights are. Americans are willingly giving up their rights when it comes to protesting, when it comes to standing up for themselves, when it comes to voting, right?
Right.
So that one is an important one. Unfortunately, I don't see it going through during this session of Congress, just because of the
No.
nature of the makeup.
But I mean,
The next one is.
but
Go
you're
ahead.
gonna see stupid bills going on where the safety of free speech, which is coming down. Where they're like, oh, well, you're putting your pronouns and you're forcing me to do this. So,
Yeah.
it's stupid.
There's the Free Speech Fairness Act, which is HR 2501, right? I call this the God wants you to vote for Trump Act. And the reason that I call this the God wants you to vote for Trump Act is because the way that this is worded is what they want to do is they want to change IRS code in order to allow for 501c3 nonprofit organizations to engage in political actions so long as that political action or political commentary fits into their overall mission. So if we have a preacher, we'll call him Ted, right? And Ted is preaching to his choir about the need to vote for Trump because Donald Trump was saved by God to save America. That's free speech. And under this law, they wouldn't be targeted or flagged for conducting political actions as an institution. So again, you wind up with this situation where people are enriching themselves or people are using nonprofit organizations in order to avoid paying taxes while at the same time engaging in political activity that they shouldn't be.
Yeah, if you are doing anything political as a church, you should have to pay taxes. That's why we have separation of church and state for a reason. Um, it has always irritated me. It's always going to irritate me, and that it doesn't matter if they are left leaning or right leaning, all across the board. If you're doing stupid shit that you're not supposed to be doing because you are a church, but then you want to go, oh, not my taxes. That's an issue to me. But it's like,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it doesn't help that we've seen all of these major like 501c3 organizations blow up to a point where they are millionaire owners or members of these organizations,
the mega
and the
churches.
organizations really don't do much, right? Like, and the mega churches, hell, you look at
What about that one that was in Louisiana during Katrina? Did absolutely nothing to help its constituents. It could have, let people in, and they chose not to. And
well, yeah, there was
the,
that one, and then there was Joel Osteen's church in Texas,
yes,
right? Like Joel Osteen would not open the doors for anyone,
right,
but he's got a gigantic church, and that gigantic church could have held
yes,
so many people.
drives me crazy.
But
Like,
and this is the type of free speech, right? That the Republicans, specifically the maggots, want us to have, right? Which is free speech as long as you do what they want you to do. Free speech as long as you are using it in a manner that is going to degrade or demean or completely dehumanize specific groups of people. Free speech so long as you are a mega church and you're making millions of dollars in donations to the politicians who are going to stay in power. Free speech, but only as long as you agree with them.
well, it's free
Right?
speech as long as say what they say what they want you to say, or even I'll go as far as to say, with the Save Act that is around, women have lost their First Amendment or free speech to say anything that they want to, or vote who they want to, and
Well,
that's how it is. I know.
be clear.
Another story.
Right. So another story, yeah, but I want to be clear. They haven't lost it yet.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to make sure that like it's so the bill is going to die in the Senate. We both know this. It's passed the House. We'll come back around to that one, but luckily it is stopped in the Senate and it's not going to go anywhere.
Right. But it's still the point of this is how far we've come.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. So after that, we've got HR 2272, which is the FAFSA Act of 2025. All right, so this one kind of delves into the whole protest and riot thing.
Oh yeah, we'd be screwed.
So this one kind of like delves into that one, but I do want to talk about it a little bit, right? Because there are protests that are going on. And I kind of sort of agree with this bill. I don't know about you, Avery, but I agree with it to an extent, right? And I'll explain my extent, and then we'll go from there. I guess Avery, you'll combat me on this one because I have a feeling you're going to come after me.
It just kind of depends.
All right, so the bill essentially adjusts the way that they are dealing with loans or grants and stuff like that. And essentially what it says is that if an individual during the conduct of a protest, right, that turns into a riot, that individual, if they've been convicted of a crime or offense related to assaults against a police officer, rioting, to include inciting a riot, organizing or promoting the riot, committing any act of violence in furtherance of the riot, aiding or abetting any person in inciting or participating in the riot, will have their loans they will have their grants converted into loans that they will then have to pay back. So I'm okay with this. Okay, so breaking news: Trump and Bukele, the president of El Salvador, just notified or told the press that they would not be returning the innocent man that was wrongfully deported.
Yeah, I was wondering why you had a pause for a second. I was like, "Is that it? That's all you had to say?" I was ready. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
So he just basically told a judge to go fuck himself, and the Supreme
He told the
Court.
Supreme Court to go
Yeah,
fuck themselves.
but let me be clear. I kind of called that this would be happening, and you said no. There's hope. So just there's that. Also, did you know certain tattoos are a crime in El Salvador? Just throwing that around out there. And Trump said that it insists that it isn't required to work with El Salvador to bring man mistakenly deported. Yeah. So yeah. Does that mean we've hit dictator status yet?
No.
Okay.
There's still a couple more steps.
Okay. We still have hope, even though he just told the Supreme Court to go fuck himself. Got it.
But hold on. So here's the thing, right?
Uh-huh.
You got to look at what the Supreme Court said, right? The Supreme Court said you will facilitate the return of that man, right? Donald Trump has come out and said he would, if he was ordered by the Supreme Court, he would do it. He publicly said that. All that now has to happen is that they have to go back to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has to make a harder ruling. Right now, the Supreme Court is pansy footing around, and they're not doing what they should be doing.
Pam Bondi just said that if El Salvador decided to return the Maryland father mistakenly deported to the country's bigger prison, the U.S. would provide a plane due to a Supreme Court ruling. So, someone's covering their ass, and someone's like, "No, fuck this shit. We're not doing it." So there's that.
Yeah, I think that there is hesitance to go against the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Maybe not by Trump, but I think that there's still hesitance among his cabal of acolytes that he has up in Jesus. That was the words.
I know, man. You're doing big stuff here.
Definition.
God, help me.
Goodness.
Hey,
yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I will say, and this is probably one of the only times she'll be like, "Oh, good for Trump." God damn it, I hate today. I will say, and good for him that the governor home in Pennsylvania that had arson. Trump has condemned it and said that a thing like this cannot be allowed to happen, which is different from his, oh well, that sucks, that's a Democrat, no one cares. So I mean, I I have to say, hey, this is good to hear, but I
Goodness. All right, so getting back on,
I,
God
f-
damn,
I feel broken
the
today.
Trump they have this ability to just completely derail everything, right?
Like my
And
bingo cards have been all fucked up this year.
goodness. All right, so
Back to what you
I
were
kind of
saying.
support back to what I was saying, right? The FAFSA Act I support, right? I do think that we need to have harder penalties for individuals who are going to school and choose to go out and protest in a violent fashion, right? I mind you, I said a violent fashion, right? I am not all about these protests where they go out with bricks and they throw bricks and they set things on fire and they destroy cars and all of that. Like, I
Thought
don't
we're
care if
thought we're
you're
avoiding.
happy or drunk or whatever, but that shouldn't be allowed.
I mean, you stepping all up in the protest. We this is not the protest show.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, I support this bill, right?
Uh huh.
Like, and we're covering everything. And I'm sure
Uh
we'll
huh.
come back
Uh
to
huh.
this one when we hit
I'm
protests.
sure we will
But
circle
I
back.
just wanted to right. I just wanted to hit this bill specifically.
So I will say that I I agree to a certain extent. Now, a lot what we are seeing is that according to the administration, any form of protest at all is being seen as a riot or you're inciting violence. Even if you're just standing there telling people how to avoid, being deported, like anything like that is being, you're committing treason. You're inciting a riot. Riot. You are being violent. Like so, with them claiming anything and everything to um get back at people who don't agree with them, I think this will allow them to abuse that power, which we've talked about offline. Like, you and I would be screwed because we do this podcast and we don't agree with the administration 90% of the time. There's that some part that, we will be like, hey, just like I just said with condemning the arson. Yep, I'm so glad that he did that. That's great. Um, so as long as this is used for the way that it's supposed to be used, I'm all for it. But knowing how this has been, no, I
Right.
think it's
And
gonna be
so this is
abused.
kind of going back to like that whole the whole Uno reverse card, right?
Right.
And what I mean by that is that um I hear you. I understand what you're saying. And agree with you 100% that this administration will absolutely
Abused
use
it.
this law and abuse the shit out of it to suppress freedom of speech. Um, and like, uh,
The
but
the idea of
I
it,
still agree. Right.
the idea of it,
The
great.
idea behind it. But how do you define a riot? What is a riot defined as? Right. Like, what are the legal terminologies when it comes to that?
I
And
mean,
all I would say is like, listen, like if you are engaged in a protest and you are arrested for the crime of destruction of private property while protesting, right? That right there should be grounds for the loss of your grant. Sorry, but if you can't behave,
and here is where I am torn kind of on it, because how did Pride start? With a riot, right? Huge protest that turned into a riot. So, I mean, our community the backbone is from rioting and protesting. So it just kind of, I'm torn on how I feel about it. You know what I mean? But that's again the personal thing. However, I will say the idea of this I like, and it just depends on how any administration wants to define a riot or a violent protest. You know, um, I think if you're actively going out and hurting people, um, with bricks or anything like that, then yes, that is an issue. Um, so I just thought of that, about how Pride started as we were talking about rioting. I was like, man,
Yeah, and that's a valid point, right?
you
Like
know,
100% valid point. I still fundamentally believe that rioting is that there's no place for rioting.
I mean, but rioting back then and rioting now, different things, you know.
Correct. Correct.
So
I mean, rioting
that's not
now,
a.
they'll burn an entire town down.
And listen, when the stuff happened for George Floyd, and everyone's like, "Oh, the left is burning it." Well, when they found out, it was actually, the protesters on the right side who were being violent. I'm not saying that left wasn't being violent, but the ones who were actually starting the fires and whatnot, it wasn't um the Black Lives Matter people. It was more of the nationalists. Literally, that's what had been found out. Just like when Jan 6 happened, they tried to blame that it wasn't, the the nationalists that went in there, and they just walked in there and it was just a peaceful protest, when we know that wasn't a peaceful protest, but they tried to blame everybody else. So mm,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I mean, good points, and this is a topic of discussion that we can definitely hit.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would say next time when we touch on the protest piece. But I think that you and I we can agree to disagree on this one. I mean,
Absolutely. And it's not that we and it's not a full disagreement. Like it's it's a spectrum. It's definitely varying. Also, to go with your breaking news, Trump says he will deport as many quote unquote dangerous undocumented immigrants as possible. But he's falsely accusing people of being MS
an
13.
undocumented immigrant.
Everybody is in charge with the gang, even though there's no factual basis on it. Jesus. And oh God, and he's urging the president of El Salvador to build more mega prisons. And also, um, do you remember that uh, and he really liked the fact that the president of El Salvador said that he would take American citizens as well, no problems.
Yeah, and that's another one that we're gonna
Yeah,
have to delve into, right? Like the
oh,
whole "can he do that" type situation.
I
And
think he can do whatever he wants.
goodness, at this point, that's kind of where we stand. All right, so the next bill I want to talk about is S 1017. That is the Safe and Secure Transportation of America Act. And this bill, let me tell you, it talks about safe and secure transportation of American energy. First and foremost, the number of pipelines that we have going through the United States coming from
Oh,
Canada.
Jesus Christ.
like, listen, folks, hate to break it to you, but that ain't American oil. No, but truly, what this bill, God, what this bill does, right?
they're blowing up themselves. So I mean, there's that too. Shit.
What if you all remember when the big protests over the Keystone Pipeline occurred,
That's why I drink bottled
and
water.
Native Americans and all sorts of Americans went up and they camped out in the area where the pipeline was supposed to go through in order to stop it.
On Native American soil, by the way. Like,
Right. And they had the right to do that. What this bill does, right, in it's currently in the Senate right now, but what this bill does is it establishes that any type of act regarding or involving the American energy transportation infrastructure will now be considered a crime. And what I mean by that, right, is when it comes to acts, you're talking about what originally the code said was damaging or destroying. The new code under this bill, if it gets passed, will say damaging, destroying, vandalizing, tampering with, disrupting the operation or construction of, or preventing the operation or construction of. So all those people that went up there and protested the Keystone Pipeline, if this bill were to be put into place, those people would get put into prison.
Yeah, it's
It's the Uno fucking reverse card, folks. Like, I can't say this enough. Democrats have consistently, and I am not a Democrat, I am a registered fucking Republican, but Democrats have consistently made arguments about the need for freedom of speech. They have consistently made arguments about the need to be able to protest your government. Democrats have consistently made efforts to ensure that people know their rights. Meanwhile, Republicans have begun to consistently move away from the freedom of speech, move away from constitutionalism, and more towards authoritarianism. That's why you have the maggots who don't care about facts. You have the maggots who care less about whether or not right is being done by this country and more about the fact that they were right. This right here is an exemplary indication of where we are headed under maggot rule. Any type of dissension, even if it's just a peaceful fucking protest, will wind up putting people in prison. That is the direction that we're going with this. And this bill right here, this bill is a maggot bill. And that's all I have to say on it.
You and I
Sorry,
both know.
Avery.
No, you're good. You and I both know, and we've talked about that they won't be going to prisons. They'll be going to a camp somewhere. And I got nothing for like I don't know. Just it's gonna happen. Where'd that one go? I like the next one. Damn it. Yes, they're gonna end up in a camp. They're just looking for reasons to be a dictator. I mean that's all I can say. It's happening. It's gonna happen, and the Democrats have rolled over on their back, and they're letting themselves get screwed for that. And the Republicans have no way to stand up, and they're not gonna stand up. Not yet.
So on the upside, here's what I see going, or where I see S1017 going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is nowhere. Because this is another one of those bills that's going to require the 60 vote cloture. And because it requires a 60 vote cloture, they're not going to have the votes needed in order to pass this bill, unless Democrats cross the line and vote for this bill, which I don't think there's enough that would do that.
I don't think, especially with the one for the Save Act, like 4 crossed over in the House, but I don't see the 11 needed for it to pass the Senate like we talked about. But knowing how things are, I bet we see some EOs come out after that, because he is going to push his agenda one way or the other or another, as we've seen. He thinks
100%.
He can do whatever.
So here's kind of what I see happening with when it comes to like this type of stuff. The EOs are going to come out 100%, right? And the way that it's going to work is that I fundamentally believe that the 2026 elections will be free and fair. I don't think that he has had enough time to negatively influence our election system nationwide. Will it be the most challenged election? Probably. I mean, you have the North Carolina election for the Supreme Court justice still going on. Matter of fact, the appeals court in the state of North Carolina just voted to, or not voted, but just ruled that 69,000 votes could be thrown out. Even though they're only getting thrown out for the specific campaign, right? So like if said person voted for the liberal justice but voted for Donald Trump, they're going to keep that vote for Donald Trump and get rid of the vote for the justice.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're going to have that going on. But I think that it's going to be free and fair, and I think that we'll eventually win out. And I think that what you're going to see is that Democrats are going to seize control of the House and the Senate. And when they do, it's over for Donnie.
I don't know. My bingo card has been screwed this entire year. I am having hope like you are. I mean, like, you know, I say it's been screwed because I mean there are some things that I'm like, really? Really? Like El Salvador prison? Didn't see that one coming. You know, I should have. I didn't. I mean, the other camps and stuff we saw coming. We've talked about it extensively. We saw how free speech was going to go. We called some other things that were happening. Nah, for, well, I mean, but for me, things were moving at a faster pace than what I had planned on. So yeah, I've been a little off and a little screwed, but you know, it is what it is, and all we can do is speak out against it, use our First Amendments, and keep fighting. You either have to fight or you're gonna roll over on your back and just take it. And I'm not one. I'm not a bottom. I do not just lay back and take it. It's not happening. So
So moving from the federal legislation and moving into the state legislation, I want to hit Donnie last. If that's all right with you, Avery.
yep, I'm following.
Yeah, so Oklahoma SB 593, which is titled the Act Relating to Crimes and Punishments.
Well, that fits right in.
So the interesting thing about this bill, right? And Avery, you and I kind of talked about it last week.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is here's what this bill does. And remember, this is that bill where I told you that I didn't see how like the summary is saying that it's going to ban all pornography.
Yeah.
Because I was going through and I just couldn't see it. And then you're like, well, here. And I looked at it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's one of those. Okay. You son of a bitch. It was one of those. It tries to be sneaky. Yeah, I get it.
It is definitely an attempt to be sneaky, right?
I mean, in Oklahoma, and to be fair, Oklahoma isn't the only one that is doing this. They're labeling it as obscenity bills, and almost every state has one, or two or three.
Right now, the way that this one starts out, right, is and it gets you to a point where you think that you're good, but they buried the other part behind it.
Right, you're like, no, I can get behind this, and then you're like, no, the fuck, I can't.
Exactly. So what they're doing is they're increasing the penalties for child sexual abuse material. So they're getting rid of pornography, and they're just calling it child sexual abuse material. I'm okay with that. Like, okay, let's do this, right?
Child abuse. Let's get rid of it.
Right. Like they go into like any visual depiction, all down the line, they talk to what that means, right? And then they go through and they wait until I think it's
about halfway through.
yeah, it's about halfway through, right? They get to unlawful pornography.
Yeah.
Right? Any visual depiction or individual image stored or contained in any format on any medium, including but not limited to film, motion picture, videotape, photograph, negative, undeveloped film, slide, photographic. Who the fuck has slides still? Photographic product, reproduction of a photographic product, play or performance in which a person is engaged in any of the following acts with another person. So you know what I just realized?
What's that? What you got?
Play or performance
Uh-huh.
in which a person is engaged in any of the following acts with another person.
Uh-huh.
That would include movies.
Uh-huh. Yes, sir, it would. In any type of theater. Yep. Yes, it would.
Yep. So all of you White Lotus lovers,
Yep. Game of Thrones
will be Game of Thrones. Goodness. Sexual intercourse which is normal or perverted, right?
Or even implied.
Anal sodomy. Sexual act. Do what?
I said even implied. I think that would go.
It just says, all it says is engage in any of the following acts with the person.
Right. But in most of the movies, it's more of a implied as opposed to, but there are some that there's a whole lot of.
Well, if you go back to like the 60s, right? When you had movies in the 60s, sex was implied. Like they would go into a room and the door was shut and the implication was that they were having sex. Nowadays, in our videos, in our movies,
it's a naked butt ass motherfucker, butt ass naked. Oh God, there went 50 Shades of Grey. Jesus Christ. My wife's gonna be upset.
Like it's all gone. So, but this is the thing, right? Like they buried this portion underneath everything else.
Absolutely.
And again, it's just it's so absolutely crazy and
you know what, they're gonna put baby in the corner.
Insane to believe that this is something that's getting pushed in our state legislature. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they put baby in the corner.
Yep.
Patrick Swayze would be rolled around in his grave right now.
Now, Maryland and New Mexico, right? They actually introduced two bills themselves, and they deal with employee free speech. One is the Maryland one is called the Maryland Worker Freedom Act, and the New Mexico bill is titled the Employee Free Speech Act. HB 233 in Maryland, HB 84 in New Mexico. The reason I'm lumping these two together is because they basically do the same thing, right? And essentially what they're saying is that workers have the right and protections regarding free speech, which means that they can say what they want and not have to worry about being or facing reprisal from their employer. Now, if you remember, there was a lot of consternation coming out of the maggot side of the right when it came to canceling people, when it came to holding people accountable for what they said. I mean, it was and still is an effort to get people fired for saying things that they say, right? What these two bills are doing is establishing that it is the companies can't fire people for saying things, right? Like they can fire people for being gay, they can fire people for being trans, but they can't fire people for saying faggots and transvestites. That's not okay.
You can't fire someone for being Christian too. You can't, their religion, you can't fire them. They can say whatever they want.
So these bills right here, they seem good, right? They really do. And in a state like Maryland, I would say this is probably a bill that's been introduced with the intention of doing good things, right? The one in Maryland has passed the House and is currently in committee in the state Senate, likely to pass. I want to say good things, right, about this bill, but I can't get through to everyone enough that with freedom of speech comes the responsibility associated with that freedom. You can say whatever the fuck you want, but there are consequences. And we can't go around and say companies cannot apply levers against their employees for saying the things that they say because that company doesn't agree with them. I don't know.
I mean, I agree. I think it's all stupid, and it's just, again, it goes to the, you can say what you want to say as long as it doesn't go against us. You can't have a different opinion than what we have. It's part
right.
of
And
it's part of being a dictator.
but I guess this kind of goes back to like our discussion on the FAFSA Act, right? Which in a positive light, these things would be good, right?
I
But
mean,
in a negative light, under the wrong person in the wrong hands, these are the bills that have that slippery slope. Unfortunately, like that's the direction we're headed, right?
listen,
Um,
I'm just here at this point. I mean, I'm counting down the days till someone picks what camp I'm going to. So it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna be a problem. I'm gonna be a problem.
maybe it'll be one of the new ones in El Salvador.
Oh, maybe. Man, they're gonna be so confused on where to put me. Oh man, that's really gonna suck. I'm gonna be screwed either
Jesus,
way. I'm just fucked either way. So,
they got to catch it first.
oh, gotta catch
You
'em
might have a
all,
boating accident.
Pokemon. I'm gonna find a private island. I'm telling you. You all see me floating around trying to fight all the sharks. You just mind your business.
Yeah. So moving into moving into the executive branch, right? Donald Trump has laid out a set of executive orders, right? We've got Executive Order 14149, which is
Say that 10
the
times
very
fast.
first. It was literally one of the very first executive orders that he signed when he came into office. It was signed January 20th, and this one was designed to restore free speech by prohibiting federal censorship, ensuring no government resources are used to infringe upon the citizens' right to speech, and mandates investigations into past censorship practices by the federal government. Sounds like a great one, right? I'm all about this one. It's great. It's terrific until you realize that what he's talking about with regards to free speech are things like
Homophobic,
DEI,
transphobic. Yeah.
transphobic statements, transphobic actions, homophobic statements, homophobic actions. People getting fired for creating hostile work environments in a federal government because they are unwilling to abide by the laws, which are being called censorship.
Or they have a pride flag on their desk, so that's an issue.
Um, he followed that up on the 29th with an executive order that reaffirms the commitment to combating anti-Semitism in the U.S. This is Executive Order 14188. Now, mind you, there was a bill that he signed into law. I keep saying this. There was an executive order that he signed during Trump 1.0, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that executive order is 13899. 13899 focus on fighting anti-Semitism. 13899 is still active. 13899 was not repealed by the predecessor and successor of Donald Trump. God, that's weird.
I hate to interrupt.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has just stated that he is open to deporting quote unquote homegrown criminals to El Salvador. He is open to deporting U.S. citizens who are considered violent criminals. And he has said, quote unquote, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. And he added that Pam Bondi is studying the laws right now. Literally quotes that just came out. Sorry to throw that out there.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say, right?
I apologize.
No,
Jesus
you're fine.
Christ.
Let's.
I know. I know. I am going to turn off my breaking news alerts and let's just. I'm sorry. I figured it was an important one. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, no, that is an important one. So, here's what I'll say before we get back into these executive orders. I'm beginning to develop a theory, and that theory is that
God.
when things are going bad, Donald Trump.
Gay Nostradamus, where are we going with this? Before you put it out into existence.
It's just a theory.
Okay, good or bad? Bad. I don't know why.
Kind of good.
Whatever.
So he's the things that he's doing, right? So he'll say things to gauge public opinion and to see the direction that it goes.
Oh, his followers are right there with him.
Right. And then he'll also gauge it to see what the politicians say. And if he takes action on something like the tariffs, and the tariffs result in a lot of bad press and a lot of bad feelings, rather than go back and take away from them, which he's already done, but he hasn't done completely, he's also going to create a whole bunch of other shit to dominate the news space in order to cover up the other actions.
I mean,
right?
Yes, I 100% agree.
And we'll come back around. I'll talk about what I mean by that later in the episode. But essentially, what Executive Order 14188 does is makes it essentially a crime to speak out against Israel. It ensures that it is a crime to make any type of statement against Israel because that is now seen as anti-Semitic. It makes it so that it is something that is monitored, right? So anti-Semitic activities are monitored now. And there are legal measures to be taken to tamp down on anti-Semitic speech, which flies in the face of 14149. Like, there is an absolute, complete and total, like, difference night and day between 14149, which talks to restoring free speech and eliminating federal censorship, to 14188, which tells the federal government you will analyze and assess and review and acknowledge that this is going on, and you will report it and action will be taken. Like, so much for freedom of speech, right? So much for restoring free speech. And then 14202, right? 14202 adds to the anti-Semitic protections by creating an anti-Christian bias task force headed by a new Department of Religion head who is a crazy woman, and I digress. But long story short, right, like, this is the direction that we're headed. Again, freedom of speech until you use it, right? The radical right, the maggot right, likes to talk about freedom of speech all the time. But they only want freedom of speech that they want to allow, right? So they love freedom of speech until you use it. I'm going to hop off my soapbox here. because Avery is just kind of letting me ramble on now.
You know what? I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. There's just so much, and we've talked about it before. Fucking, it is. You can't say anything you want, but they can, and it's bullshit. Again, it should be the way it is across the board, and just like when we served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, right? Um, we served a country who hated us at that point in time, and we did it anyway because we valued, the freedom of everybody else. And even when I see people burning flags or taking a knee or whatever they want to do, we fought for their right to do those things, to be able to demonstrate their disagreements however they felt the need to do that. And it's the same way with words. Even if they say words or they talk down to me, and they trans people were called, pedophiles and groomers, and and all of that stuff. That is their right to feel the way that they feel. Do I have to agree with it? Do I have to like it? No. Um, just as much as if I'm telling you that you are a piece of shit, and you know that you would, your white version of Jesus is not the actual version of Jesus, and if he showed up on your doorstep, you would kick him to the curb and tell him, that he needs to be deported. I'm allowed to say that too, and it just comes back to, I wish people would just respect each other. It's common sense shit. Like, if it used to be you got the respect that you gave out, and instead, and this is both sides, just, it's us versus them, and that's not how it's supposed to be. It's not how it should be.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand with it. I mean, I can't say anything else about it. That's just how it is.
Yeah. No, you're right. And again, this is literally just a limited point of picking pieces to talk about freedom of speech, right? And the
Right?
First Amendment, it covers a lot of things, and freedom
Oh,
of speech
absolutely.
covers a lot of things. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be bringing in more, and we'll talk a little bit more about protests. We'll talk more about the right to peacefully assemble, and all those pieces that go into it.
I remember when we
Uh,
were starting this, the research for this. We both said, "Hey, we said, right, the free speech, but that's the First Amendment. How far do we want to go with this?" And
yeah,
because we're like, "Holy shit," So
yeah, and unfortunately, this one just happens to be the driest one.
yeah.
But stay tuned with us as we go through. I want to rehash what we covered last week with 1, 2, 3, 4. Trump declares a trade war.
Oh yes,
And
yes, yes.
yeah, so what I want to do is I kind of want to talk about some things that happened that we weren't able to talk about until they occurred, right? And that was this past week that they occurred. Um, and the thing that needs to be stated and very clearly stated is that on Monday, right before he was it Monday the 9th.
I think so. Hold on.
Maybe
Monday
it was
was the
Tuesday.
7th. Yeah, Monday was the 7th. The 9th is a Wednesday.
Okay, so on Tuesday,
One of
right?
those days.
Donald Trump. It was Tuesday night that Donald Trump pushed out a truth that said, "This is a great time to buy DJT." Now, there's a lot of talk about, oh well, he's talking about the DJT that is like his stock ticker, right?
Uh huh.
Um, but there's also a lot of talk about him messaging to his compatriots, right, his followers, to
MTG.
buy because, right, MTG, because he was planning to sign an executive order that put a 90-day pause on all tariffs except for China, right? And if you remember when we talked about it last week, even the rumor allowed for a bump in the stock, right?
Yes,
So
it
we
did.
saw the S&P, we saw the DJI, we saw the Nasdaq. All of those indicators saw an uptick, right? So our economy actually started to get better again. But when Donald Trump came out and said, no, those are just rumors, they dropped back down. Well, that night, he posted this about this is a great time to buy, right? And then the very next day, he signs another executive order that states, I'm putting this pause up for 90 days. So that thing that he claimed was fake news was real news.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was declared as fake news, it allowed for the stocks to drop again, which allowed for people to buy, which allowed him to then say, hey, we're going to go ahead and let it go. And then stocks rose, and all those people who bought low on Tuesday night, guess what?
What happened?
They got rich.
Oh, buddy.
And then there's video of Donald Trump talking about, oh, well, this is my friend, blah, 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 Charles Schwab, and he made $800 million last night. Like, okay, listen, folks, I get that there is a concern about the things that he's saying when it comes to deporting U.S. citizens, 100%. Do I think that he's going to do it? I do. I do. But do I think that it's going to happen within the next 90 days? No. I think that what is going on is that this is an effort to normalize the conversation, to normalize what is being said, to test the messaging so that when it does finally happen, he's got the messaging all just right, right?
And
It's the same
everybody's
way that he did it
desensitized.
it's the same way that we did it with the deportation of illegal immigrants,
Right.
right? It was the creep. It was in Trump 1.0, it was we're going to deport all immigrants that have been convicted of crimes, right? And then it got turned into we're going to deport all immigrants who got convicted of major crimes, right?
Right.
And then you fast forward to Trump 2.0, and they were all out there saying we're only going to deport those individuals who are guilty of major crimes. And then people start getting roped up who have not committed any crime, and that turned into if they crossed the border illegally, they committed a crime.
Or, oh, you had a speeding ticket. That was a crime.
Right. So
Which, I mean,
again, I think
technically,
this is one of those that same like line of logic is we're going to move away from like words down the road, and it's going to get kind of hairy, right? But right now, I think that he's pushing this out there. One is that conjecture to get people to talk, right? And what that does is it drowns out the news about the insider trading that and the grift that's going on in his administration, and allows for him to plan his next couple of moves.
and I think part of it also it gets everybody desensitized. It
Right.
you're so used to this that hey, it's just a Tuesday.
Right, but again, that's part of the planning process, right?
Absolutely.
Like you can't go around and say it's a great time to buy, and then the very next day post a truth that says, based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125%. Folks, that is now 145%, effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States to include the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way. Okay, so if I punch you for no reason and you punch me back, that gives me a reason to punch you harder.
I'd
Is
also
what he's saying.
I'd also like to stop in and say, I read an article, and I just remembered it that, um, he had stated, or one of them had stated, it might have been Bassett or whatever the hell his name is, stupid, had said that there are countries, and they were encouraging this to find other ways of evening out the tariffs. Hey, how about we, give you these goods, or give you rights to this, or what if we do this for you? And so that's also going on in the background. I'll have to find that article. And it's the only one I read about it. But it had like literal quotes that came from him. So yeah, there's also sneaky shit, of course.
It's the quid pro quo thing, right?
Absolutely.
And then you fast forward, and Trump signs an executive order granting, I guess you could call it clemency for the technology industry, right? Cell phones, computers, stuff like that we import. He's made them exempt from the tariffs coming out of China.
Now he's trying to do that for automobiles as well. That was this morning I read. He's trying to find a
So,
way.
but folks, this is par for the course, right? Like, this is something that we consistently see coming out of this administration. They intentionally overdo it, crash everything, and then try to fix it. And if they do fix it, hey, we fixed the economy. Biden made it all terrible, and we fixed it. Like, in whose freaking world is that even something that is allowable, right? Like, in whose world is this? Are we living in a world where we forget about what happened the day before? And that's something that I consistently bring up with people, is that, listen, if you're going to talk about how, Donald Trump is saving the economy, let's talk about how Donald Trump has ruined the economy.
I,
I don't know.
I'm not surprised
I'm
about
just,
anything anymore.
yeah.
All right.
So I'll go back to, I really do. I think that what is going on is that Donald Trump is intentionally seeding stories like the deporting American citizens, in order to cover up the real story, which is his effort to grift his way into economic power. Um, I think that the discussion about, um, deporting American citizens is real and valid and needs to get more airtime. It needs to be discussed more. The ramifications need to be discussed more. But at the end of the day, like, we're folks, we're literally living in a situation where we have to maintain cognizant. We're living in a situation in a time where we have to maintain awareness of everything that is going on around us, of everything that is occurring, of all of the news stories, because the only way to ensure that we are going to be better, to ensure that we are going to get through this, is if we stay on top of things.
Listen, I've gotten, as bad as the people I used to say were just paranoid and full of shit. I got a go bag. The wife's got a go bag. The kids got a go bag. The animals got a go bag, because I ain't I ain't gonna find myself in a camp.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
It
run.
just We just need to be aware.
Yep.
American citizens need to be aware. American citizens need to be cognizant.
They
And
need to have
those of us who
plans.
have the ability to speak, right? And have the ability to talk about what is going on, we need to do this every single day. And every single week, and we need to make sure that we're staying on top of this, because our freedoms, our rights, are being slowly
Eating
pulled
away.
away from us.
Sometimes not even
Um,
slowly.
yep.
But I
So
mean,
all we have to
this
do, it's on us, right? It is on us.
this is what we do every day, pretty much all day long. This is why we get on the podcast every week. Why, even though I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I feel burnt out. There's just so much that is going on all the time that I've literally had to disengage for a day or two, because it's just so much. But
Yep.
this is why we keep doing it. I'm not gonna go quietly.
And that's all we got for today.
Absolutely.
Again, we covered a lot of ground, and we hope you picked up some useful information about what's happening in politics right now, especially with regards to your First Amendment rights. Next week, we'll be taking a look at your right to protest, your right to peacefully assemble, as it applies under the First Amendment. So stay tuned, and hopefully you tune back in next week.
Hey, just like Carl said, thank you for hanging out with us. I'm gonna put in one of these selfish little plugs again. That hey, come check us out on Discord. And I'd also like to say that we do have merch for you to donate money in and get if so need to. And we actually have our first order that just went out. I just got the email. I'm so excited. It is on the way to its new owner. But yes, uh, just come hang out with us. We're on there almost every day, and we couldn't do this without you guys.
Yep. So, with all that being said, remember, folks, stay informed
Stay engaged.
and always color outside the political lines.